So we're going to go ahead and prep the area around the actual hip. However, I do want you to also incorporate the back and ab tutorial as many of those muscles come down and cross the hip. So we're gonna start with prepping the tissue. And for the sake of modesty, I'm gonna be doing this over clothes, but always fasciablasting is done on bare skin with oil. So we're gonna move right into one of my favorite muscles, the tensor fascia lata, or the TFL. It runs right here and then it becomes the IT band. So it's super important in terms of the health of the hip as well as other just beauty factors in this area. So I'm using the face blaster, and I would do this until we just had a little bit of redness. And again, you can come up higher than that, and we'll explain all of that in the ab and back tutorial. Then we'll move on to the glute area. It's very easy to do this one-handed, and you can go all the way around to the SI joint, all the way around to the ASIS bone here, okay? So we're doing basically the entire booty area. And then the area that I don't think a lot of people think about is prepping where we have one of the primary hip flexors, which is the psoas. It causes a lot of issues for hip. So you want to go ahead and prep all along this area here. So we're basically going from just under the chest and down all the way to the hip flexors here. I like a diagonal, one-handed, but however you can get this going and get that surface layer of fascia, I'm okay with. All right, once we get it nice and warm, we're gonna go back with the Mini 2 or the regular fascia blaster. You just wanna have these bigger claws, and you're just gonna do the exact same thing. I really do like the Mini 2 for this process because it's great leverage over the hip. And it's just super easy to one-hand it. Okay, so we'll do TFL. Again, you can go a little bit above and below. Then we'll move on to all of our glutes. Most people absolutely love doing this. It feels amazing. Making sure you go all the way from the SI around to the front. And then you're just gonna go a little deeper. Same technique across the abdominals. Now, if we have less than flat abs, it is okay to brace the skin and kind of stretch out so that the fascia blaster can glide easily over this area. So I want you to go back and remember from blasting all around the hip where you had either sensitive areas or where you said, oh my goodness, that's like a chunk, because we're gonna go back and use the tip of either the Mini 1, Mini 2, or the Nugget, and we're gonna do some detailed work on the hip. So for instance, if you were working your quadricep and you found right here that there was a patch that was less than optimal, then you'll go back with the Nugget and you'll just use the poke and wiggle technique. So all you do is just descend into the muscle. I'm on the muscle now, and just poke and wiggle. You may find that this is really sensitive, so go to your comfort level. You want it to be slightly uncomfortable, okay? So wherever you felt it, that could have been down by the knee, it could have been something at the glute hammy tie-in, but you can just go back and basically anywhere use the poke and wiggle technique. Most people tend to be really tight right around the actual hip bone. There's a lot of forces of fascia that come in on the hip bone. There's nothing wrong whatsoever with going all the way around this hip, okay? If you were sensitive in the back, totally okay to take the Nugget and do a poke and wiggle right along the SI joint. Many of us start losing that mobility back there. And then I just have to say, this is Ashley's jam. The hip flexors are usually what causes the hip to get jammed. So I actually like to teach people to go in and do the poke and wiggle with the back side of the handle of the fascia blaster. And you literally hold it with two hands, get some leverage. I like doing it in a bent position because the hip flexors are shortened. And then you literally just poke and wiggle, okay? You want to start these guys with the handle because it's less intense. And then as things begin to loosen over, a month or two of regular work, you can go back and actually use the tip of the nugget. We sit all the time, you guys, and so these muscles are always in a shortened position. And usually when people have hip tension, this is just a part of the problem. Anyone who follows me knows that I'm all about the psoas muscle. It attaches on the femur head and then to our lumbar vertebrae. So that's kind of a bad design because we sit all the time and that psoas never gets lengthened. So a little bit more of an advanced technique is to palpate the psoas using the back side of the mini one. So the psoas goes from right here to basically right here. So what you want to do is just situate it softly and gently into a poke and wiggle wiggle. Now as far as the distance, I'm halfway between my belly button and my hip bone. And I just poke and wiggle wiggle. And if you want to make sure you're on it and lift your leg, because the psoas is the only hip flexing muscle in the abdominal region. So you can just poke and wiggle right up. Very, very highly effective